Bismillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace and blessings be to everyone. Peace and blessings from the Creator. Yeah, it's strange. I'm actually in the dark. I finished talking to my mother and I thought to try out this live stream as I've never used it before. And lately I'm thinking a lot about, well, I wouldn't say lately, I'm always thinking about development of myself, but even more the subject of my health and the interconnectivity between the foods that I eat and how much I eat and what that means as far as my development and my mindset. And the most important realization that I have come to is that we don't have to ask before we ask anyone. We don't have to rely on people, on books, on gurus, on teachers, and I'll back this up from a Quranic verse, even prophets. The first reliance is on the one who created us. That's our number one reliance. That's the first place where we begin in our search for truth, in our desire to develop ourselves. Of course, I cannot put my path upon others, but the path that I've walked can be walked by others to obtain and achieve similar results. And in some way, I feel I'm still at the beginning of these awarenesses. I feel as if years of studying and searching, living the time that I lived with the Qubaysiyat when I was 17 years old, being with a group of women who happened to be Sufi, and the lessons that I learned while I lived with them in that time. The teacher that I had when I was younger, Sheikh Ahmed, and studying the Quran with him, learning the Quran and the feeling that I had being connected to the Quran from a younger age, what my parents have taught me over the years, the sacrifice, the lessons I learned through their lives, the lessons I learned through the lives of those around me, seeing the end result of being disconnected from divine guidance, seeing how the divine guidance and having the teachings of Quran, the teachings of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, how that had given me a clearer perspective on the world, on myself, my value as a person, as a human, as a woman, understanding my value, not to be thrown away, not to be given to anyone haphazardly, as I saw was happening in many situations. And the end result, not a good end result. When I look at the time that I had in Yemen, the many, many years living in Yemen and living in a desert valley for a few years with others who were there to study and to work on their minds, to work on their souls, to work on their divine connection through seeking knowledge. So, what I'm saying is that all this has culminated the time of living in Portugal, leaving and staying 3 months in Portugal, the people I met, the experiences I had, the lessons I learned, the tears I shed, the happiness I experienced, all of this, and now Thailand, all of it has culminated to this, or to these many awarenesses. But it all brings me back to the origin. So I go It's almost like the alchemist, you know, you're looking for something or you want something and you go on these journeys and they just bring you back to where you started. But that place, returning back to that place, is just not the same as when you started. So you're going back to the same place, but as a different person with new awarenesses, new realizations, richer, so much richer. So at this stage, at this point, I finally asked Allah for guidance. Well, many times I've been asking Allah for guidance in removing the obstacles that I obviously have had in my life. For some time, the weight, gaining weight, having excess weight, it has been this struggle, it has been an issue for me. It's been on my mind. And sometimes people equate extra weight or being overweight with self esteem. But for me, my whole self has never been defined by my physical. So I've always loved being me. I always loved being myself. I love the thoughts that I have. I love delving into them. I love the connections that I make. I enjoy the way that I express myself. I enjoy connecting with others and listening to others and learning from others. I love that I love people. I love that I love art and painting and not knowing what's going to come out of me next, you know, not knowing what painting will emerge. I love writing. I love expressing myself through poetry. I love singing. I enjoy my voice when I sing. I enjoy drumming and connecting with others through that. I love reciting the Quran and sharing that. I love massage and putting my hands on another and the fact that just laying our hands on a person can do so much. I love that I know Islam. I love that I have this perspective that so many people have been deprived from and moved away from. I love that I learned about living foods and raw foods, that I'm drawn to it, and the fasting. And so I love myself and I love who I am. And with that, I have also come to love this journey of balancing out my body. I love this adipose tissue. I love this extra fat because it has been a teacher to me. It has gotten me to awarenesses that I would not have had otherwise. If in all of these past years I had not had this struggle, I wouldn't perhaps have been as inclined to study about the body and releasing weight and learning about living foods and the benefits of cleansing, the benefits of fasting, the benefits of mindset, self development. Perhaps I wouldn't have found people like Dan McDonald, the life regenerator. You know, perhaps I would have never called and spoken to Annette Larkins, who's just a wonderful woman who we speak when I have spoken to her, we've talked about diet, but she's so much more than that. She has so much to offer on multiple levels. Her brain is beautiful. And perhaps I would have never decided to leave, and I would have never come across, for example, the Superman diet and the website and Alexander Bloom's amazing way of expressing himself, teaching me about detox, which I never knew much about heavy metal detox. And that leading me to wanting to remove this feeling in my mouth, which I had already known about, that I needed to get that out. But I really understood on a deeper level the interconnectivity between toxicity and fat and storing it in the fat. Perhaps I would have never gone to Portugal and met the people who encouraged me to start sharing more on different platforms, like Caroline. She encouraged me to start to share more and get comfortable with the video. Perhaps I would have never been at the retreat with the other Caroline and Gregory also holding the ceremony where we burn our limiting beliefs. Perhaps I would never be here right now. And I would have never been moved to the point where I asked Allah, I said, "Oh Allah, guide me, remove the obstacles that are stopping me." I said to Allah a couple weeks ago, I said, "Oh Allah, you know how my mind works. You know how my mind works. You know what awarenesses could best help me to be dedicated to the path that will lead me to being as healthy as possible, as lean as is good for me. You know the balance that my body is capable of achieving, and you can guide me to that in every way." And I've seen these shifts that I know are not a coincidence. These shifts of awareness and connections of understanding the bigger picture at stake when I compromise my body, when I compromise in my diet. There's a bigger picture at stake. There are forces and systems in place that understand the power of one, because collectively, when we are diseased, collectively, when our vibration is low, collectively, when we are worse than animals. I was talking to my mom, and the reality is that some of us get into a state that's worse than animals. Allah even talks about that in the Quran, about being like an'am, being like cattle. But then Allah says, Bel hum adal. No, rather, no. They are worse than cattle. And we live in a time where people are praising to be like the animal, when really some individuals, they should wish to be like the animals. And why is it that when we talk about acting like an animal or being like an animal, we look at the ones that are like so lowly? Why not be like the swan, this beautiful, delicate creature, beautiful symbolism of love and commitment? But you don't hear people talking about that when they talk about being like animals. Would that we could be like some of these animals, the way our society is going. But anyway, the point is that there's a greater loss at stake when we lose ourselves to that which does not serve us. This could be in a relationship. Some people are worshiping love, worshiping the idea of love, and so they lose themselves to another person. They lose themselves to the ideas of what success means. They lose themselves to the status quo. They lose themselves to emulating imagery that is put forward to make you feel like you're less than. So now you got to copy off of whatever image has been put in front of you since you were a child. They lose themselves to sex, they lose themselves to food. And then, yeah, so much is lost because now the society is collectively becoming unaware, is collectively lost. And so everyone wants to be guided to something. And so we're just being herded in whatever direction those who have more power are herding us towards. Herding and hurting. Oh, so right now I know that Ramadan is coming, and I feel so blessed to be aware that that fasting is my new basis, my new foundation upon which I am building my health. Trusting in Allah, trusting that He has created my body in such a manner that it can heal itself. It is intelligent. It is incredibly intelligent. For so long, it seems that scientists and different people who would perform studies, it was almost like they were saying our body is stupid. Like our body doesn't know and understand how to tap into the stores that are there. So we were actually supposed to believe that if we didn't eat, our metabolism would slow. I don't know who funded these studies. I don't know. I really don't know. But I do feel that there's something wrong with that teaching, because we know now, what do we know? We know that when you don't eat, you allow your body, your insulin lowers. When you go into a certain state of fasting, of not eating, your HGH hormones are increased, your fat burning begins to increase, the killing, the autophagy, the cells, they die that are abnormal, that are diseased, that are cancerous. So we know all of these wonderful things happen when we don't eat. Yet some people were telling us, you need to eat every day, several times a day, as much as you can. Okay, maybe no one said as much as you can, but the point is that whole idea was being put forward, and people are still stuck in that because of the brainwashing and the conditioning. And that's why more and more, the more I move away from what Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, peace and blessings be upon him and all the prophets and their families and those who followed them, when I move further away from that teaching and I get to see the other way just brings me back to the prophetic teachings. It just brings me back because I see what is superior. And I see what is superior not only by what is inferior. So I don't go to what is inferior and see that, oh, this is superior. It's also that I see that the best of the best in various areas are employing that which Prophet Muhammad taught, that which is supported and taught in the Quran. And I see that if I had followed that to the utmost and stuck with that, truly stuck with that, I wouldn't have some of the problems that I'm having now. Our society wouldn't have some of the problems that it's having, if any of them really. So to know the beauty of something is to know its opposite. And you can truly understand the beauty of something when you're exposed to the opposite. You have a beautiful connection with a person. Beautiful connection, wonderful connection. Sometimes you need to be around that which is inferior to appreciate the connection that you have. some of the friendships that I've had of people who really care for me and were there for me and go out of their way to show the love. And so if you go somewhere where it's just not at that same level, it's not bad, but it's just not at that same level, you appreciate where you came from. Like, I appreciate the sisterhood that is so easy within Islam. It's just something so beautiful because we're all tied together in this bond that is is pure and clear, and it's wonderful. And yeah, maybe with my sisters, I don't share the same level of affection because maybe they weren't raised with that physical affection in the same way. Or maybe I may not speak to them about certain subjects because I'm someone who dives into a lot of different subjects and areas that may not, and no, I will definitely say, may not be supported necessarily, or the best subjects if you want to protect yourself. And what I mean by that is not everyone needs to go and look into like Tantra. Okay, I haven't found anyone. I'm not practicing it with anyone at this moment, but from a teenager, when I learned about this, about Tantra, and had heard about it, and I just knew, like, oh, there were these deep connecting exercises that you do with your partner, or that I knew if I was married, I would do with my husband. I mean, for years, I was intrigued and interested in this. It's something about it that resonated, but it's not for everyone to go speak to someone who labels themselves as a sex guru, and that's the title that they choose, or a Jedi. What is the name that I forgot what this one man that I came across here, interestingly enough, Islamic background, raised in the UK, Bengali background, and he's teaching yoni worship. He's teaching, about the sacred feminine, and this connection through sex. And so not everyone is going to go speak to someone like that and understand why I myself may want to do that. But I feel like there's no stone to be unturned. Like, meaning, even as a child, I used to love, and this is symbolic, okay? This is symbolic. I used to, as a child, love to go to the rocks that were on the land, that was in the land or on the land of my grandfather. And I would always pick up the stones. I would always do it. Go to the dirt, find a rock, big rock, rock that nobody else was even thinking to turn it over, and there's this world. But what would I do? I would collect. I would take the crickets and the insects. I would look at them. I would observe them. I would analyze them. I would think about them. And then I would put them back. I remember the first time I saw an albino cricket, and I was really surprised. It stayed with me all these years because I'd seen so many crickets, and I used to love how I would pick up the rocks in a place and there would be so many of them, and they'd just be looking at me like, what are you doing to us? Like, all of a sudden there's light. They're all huddled in the dark, and then bam, like, all of a sudden there's no cover. It must have been a very strange feeling for them. But I remember seeing this white albino cricket, and yeah, but I got to see that because of this desire to turn over these rocks and to see what was underneath. And in every world, like, I see that there's intriguing awarenesses. There are connections to be made. Like some things, when I delve into it, it's not that I delve specifically, but sometimes it's delving into the mind of the one that has delved into that. So, for example, I never felt the need to dive into pornography, but I dove into the world of those who, for example, were suffering from it, were giving it up. Even looking at the interviews of women who were formerly in the industry, their suffering, their histories that led them down a path that made them decide, now I my body is beautiful, I'm beautiful, and I'm going to use this to make money. Because men and women are different, and there will always be, and has always been more men that are interested in buying what women have to offer sexually than the opposite. The statistics show, they do not lie. The percentages do not lie. Mainstream media and who it's targeted towards does not lie. The scenes that show women's bodies naked, topless, in all types of compromising and uncompromising positions, and however you want to term it, all of this is serving who? It's serving men. It's not serving the women. Like, seriously, majority of women, they're not served. This is for the men. That's why it's put there. So my point is, when sometimes delving into a world doesn't mean that you have to engage in everything that is in that world, but talking to those who do will teach you a lot. And so these are the stones that I unturned. These are the patterns, and all that to say, I went on a long tangent, but the point is, it makes me different, and I don't see that everyone needs to do what I'm doing. I don't see that that's necessary, but for me and what the work that I believe I am meant to do, it fits. It fits, and it gives me even more appreciation. More appreciation as far as where I've come from. That's not my intention. My intention was not to go out and gain appreciation. My intention in living in places where I was, or I am pretty much the only Muslim, which is not advised to not be surrounded by community that believes similar. But my intention was not to gain appreciation from where I came. No. Because there was a lack of appreciation that caused me to say, you know what, I don't want to be in places where everything is polluted. I want to be close to nature. I want to be around others who are not eating, who are eating the raw foods and cleansing and fat. Like that was, so I didn't appreciate the fact that it wasn't, for example, in Jersey City, when I went back there for 2 years after Yemen. I did not appreciate that, the lack of. And so that lack of appreciation brought me to places that had what I felt I would appreciate. But then that in turn brought me once again to appreciate what I did not see and what I was not focused on from where I came. So there's this beautiful dance, this beautiful back and forth. And so right now, I realize that I'm just flowing and it's fine. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. No, 2:30 in the morning. And yeah, it's okay that I'm flowing for now. But Ramadan is coming and I want to make more videos focused on that. Very focused, more linear. because my mind is like a web and I just branch out here and there. But yeah, I know that Ramadan is coming and I want to fall in love with this cleansing. I want to fall in love with this fasting. I want to fall in love with this new foundation. I want to love the feeling of the emptiness in my stomach, which means that I'm in a state that is benefiting me on multiple levels. And then I want to fall in love with drinking water again, because if I'm not dry fasting and I'm drinking water, there's a benefit in that too. And there's a benefit in the fruits. There's a benefit in the herbs. There's a benefit in the teas. There's a benefit in taking the binders that help remove the heavy metals. So I'm going to end this stream of consciousness, and yeah, lots of love. Lots of you who I care about are sleeping, I'm sure. Assalamu alaikum.